All right. Welcome to the Microdesk webinar series. My name is Megan Fullagar. I'm the marketing manager here. Today's webinar will be on BIM 360 Field, presented by Peter Marchese, senior consultant here at Microdesk. Just a little bit about Microdesk. We're an Autodesk Gold partner. We're also an authorized Autodesk training center and a value-added reseller. We're also partners with Oracle, Google, ESRI, and Microsoft. Microdesk has 11 offices nationwide, and that includes over 90 consulting specialists and software developers. All right, just a little bit about BIM 360 Field. Autodesk's newest BIM collaboration solution, BIM 360 Field, is revolutionizing field management processes in the office and on the job site. In today's webcast, we'll be discussing how BIM 360 Field helps automate and improve project data management throughout the project delivery process. We'll be previewing how the combined web, reporting, mobile, and field BIM capabilities provide more effective workflows for managing punch lists, safety inspections, quality checklists, and commissioning tests. Whether you are a project executive looking to access project information through a web browser, or a superintendent requiring mobile access to project data while on the job site, or even an owner looking for more accurate data on the commissioning and handover process, BIM 360 Field provides a connection between documentation and BIM. A little bit about Peter. Peter Marchese is one of Microdesk's senior consultants. He joins Microdesk as a senior consultant with expertise in architectural technology solutions. Peter has extensive working knowledge of AutoCAD, Architectural Desktop, and Revit. At Microdesk, Peter works with national architecture firms implementing Revit. He specializes in custom training and content creation and leading firms through the process of creating standards and workflows based on building information modeling technology. Just a few logistics before we begin. In order to minimize any background distractions, you are all on mute for the duration of this session. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question area of the webinar toolbar to the right of your screen. Peter will address as many questions as he can at the end of the presentation, but if we run out of time, we'll provide you with our contact information so you can follow up with us. And so now I'll turn it over to Peter.
Thank you very much, Meg. All right, so today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking a look at Autodesk BIM 360 Field. So I'm going to be doing this in sort of two paths. First, I'm just going to go over some information, give you a brief overview of BIM 360 Field. Maybe you haven't seen it or heard of it before. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the program. After that, I'm going to actually hop into the service. And I'm referring to it as a service because it's not something that you actually install. It's actually a cloud service that you'll be accessing from multiple different points. And what I'm going to end up focusing on is how it actually connects to your models that you've actually built and how that information can then translate into the actual field. So that way, if you're in the field, you've got an iPad, you want to actually review where you are, you want to start doing some commissioning, we can actually do that. Again, if there are any questions, please feel free to shoot them over in either the little chat window or in the questions window. We'll keep an eye on that and try to address them as we can. All right, so BIM 360 Field. What is it? It's a service that allows you to manage quality programs, safety programs. It allows you to bring your documents out into the field in a very easily managed and tracked format. It also helps you take care of and handle equipment commissioning and handover for operations management. Now, how it actually does this is by using an online and mobile document library with markup features. What that means is that when you're in the field or just accessing the program online, what it allows you to do is view the floor plans that you've actually uploaded. From that point, you can mark them up, give it red lines, put in questions. You can create checklists or task lists. You can then assign that to different people. Make sure that things are getting completed and track that and create all the different reports that you need so that you can ensure that, number one, the work is actually getting done, and number two, find out where your problems are so that way you can deal with them very quickly. Now, the tools that are available for you, you have web-based access. It's agnostic to browsers, so you can use it in Firefox, Chrome, IE, Safari. You can use it on mobile. Now, mobile, a little bit different here. There's a specific application for the iPad. that allows you to do certain things out in the field that you can't do by default with the website. Now, you can also use any kind of device that you want, even a dumb phone. What I mean by that is, if you have the ability to send an email, you can actually create issues and put comments within the actual field. Now, what you don't have, though, is a specific app for either Android or for Windows mobile devices. So if you want to access it, you can go to the website from any kind of a smartphone that has web access, or you can just send an email to create things. But you won't be able to actually do some certain things like take a photo and directly upload it unless you have the iOS one. Your reports will always be available. And you have your Field BIM, which allows you to view the actual content. Okay, so quick lap of the life of the project. So within this, it's a service. But it's not a service that's going to be consistent to everybody because it probably doesn't need to be. You have multiple people that are invested in the project. So say, for example, your superintendents, they're probably going to be very concerned over quality and safety and different things like that. So again, they can send in their issues via email. They can view it on the iPad and put in markups, notes, issues, and track all that, and ensure that things are maintaining safety. Your trade contractors are going to be looking at that to ensure that they have no extra work or there's no other problems. So let's say that somebody has checked their work and says, yeah, you know what, this needs to be fixed, it's been damaged, or this has actually been put in the wrong way, or this equipment is not here yet, it needs to be. The subcontractors can check in, and on their portal, it's customized specifically to show them the information that they need. And the project executive, they can actually view any of the reports that they want at any point in time. And what they can also do is schedule the reports to be done on as needed or on a specific schedule. You want to have certain schedules every morning when you get into work? I can tell them to run at 6 o'clock in the morning. You want certain ones to actually be saved. You don't know when you need them, but you don't want to have to go through the process of creating them or putting in all the settings and picking and choosing the filters. Once you've got a report that you like, you can save that setting and just run it on demand. Then your project managers have access to all of it. So the web-based reports, and they can look at whatever information that they need. And all this information can be controlled by the project manager, meaning that if you want certain people to be able to change certain things, other people to change things but not these things, or even have access to certain pieces of the data, you can manage that and change that. So you do have control over the people's user rights. And as an owner, they can log in and keep track of things. And then that information can easily be handed over to the architect or the engineers to double check things, fill out RFIs, or to complete things for a punch list. And then from there, it can be handed over. Now, a couple of reasons why BIM 360 Field is beneficial for doing things for like safety programs. Typically, the safety is only for the inspectors. They only identify the things that are negative. And usually, if you have a problem or a question, it's hard to find out who you're supposed to ask. By putting this online, allowing essentially anybody to ensure that things are going to be taken care of, what allows everybody to do is become a part of the process, to be part of the solution, as opposed to saying it's his fault or it's this. And also, if there's a specific thing that seems to be causing problems, it's much easier to track that and whittle it out and then deal with it, as opposed to saying this thing keeps happening, but I don't know why. Okay, so from there, I'm actually going to hop into the software. And we have actually gotten a couple of questions. I'm going to either address them as it fits into the presentation, or I will get to them at the end, I promise. So what I'm going to do now, hop over here. And what I'm looking at now is BIM 360 Field through IE. So this is my start page. Depending on what project you're working on, there can be many projects that you have access to. What you're going to be seeing here is your home screen. The home screen can be customized to show you the information that you feel is necessary. In my case, what I'm looking at is the issues, the total number of issues versus the total number closed, the average time to close issues, which is a little bit long here, and the root cause of my issues. So I see that there's a lot of problems with negligence. I can then track that to the specific responsible parties and then start to deal with it that way. And again, all this can be customized. If I don't really care about the root cause, I'm more interested in something else, I can always ask for a different report style different information, different data that I want to show. I can see my project summary. It tells me how many things are open or closed or past due. And if there's a message that I want to actually iterate to the entire project team, I can just put that down at the bottom. It's almost as a project record. Certain things are due on this date. Certain things have to happen, or remember, tomorrow's a holiday, there's no work or whatever. So I can actually track that information and make sure it's available to everybody. Now on the left-hand side, I've got my issues that I can create and view, my checklists, the physical equipment, tasks, and photos. So if I actually hop up here to my View Issues, this will currently show me all the different issues that I have. I can see dates closed, off, not closed. Again, I can customize this and show more or less data. So the views that I'm looking at is not necessarily the only view or the only way to see this information. It is customizable based on your needs. Within this, what I can actually see is that this one here has a comment assigned to it. These here have basically attachments. That attachment could be an RFI, that could be a PDF, that could be a doc file, anything. Now if I see anything here with a push pin, that lets me know that there actually is a red line on it. And if I need to, I can come over here and search and dial in. So this is more of a demo project. There's not a whole lot of information. But on a lot of large projects, you'll probably have a lot of issues. Hopefully you won't. Just depends on where things are. And I go back to home, check out my checklists, things that need to still be done. This project, I have a couple of things in here. And by double-clicking on them, I can hop in and actually see what's going on within them. And I can actually see what the checklist is. And these are things that I can actually access in the field on the iPad as well. So that way I can actually fill it out and track this. So what I'm actually going to do now is I've got an idea of some of the things that I can do. I'm very good at tracking all this information and showing it. And I can put in my tasks that need to be done, track my equipment. This project has some equipment. But how do you actually get this equipment into here? So that's the fun part. So let's say what we have here is our Revit files. So what I have on the right is my Revit architecture, left is my Revit MEP file. And what I'd like to actually do is get this data into my field so that, number one, I'm not going to sit here and put in every single piece of equipment by hand one at a time, and also so that I can view this in the field as a 3D model. So what I need to do, I'm going to hop back over to Field here. I'm just going to switch this over to a different project. So you can see I haven't actually set all this other stuff up here. I'm going to go to my library. And what I have is a couple of folders and an import button on the right. If what I'd like to do is import my content, I'm going to click on Import. I'm going to log in. And I'm going to tell it which project I'd like to actually import that content into. From there, I'll go to Next, locate where I'd like to go, and then I can either click on specific files, or what I can end up doing is picking on an entire folder structure. Now, there's a little bit of a trick here. Autodesk recommends that you actually don't upload an individual file, but you upload an actual folder. Now, if you want to have a folder structure to start with, you can't upload a folder that's empty. So easy way to set this up is that if you'd like to have things organized a specific way, you want to create an organization that will be consistent, almost as a standard. In BIM 360 Glue, you can drag and drop that in, sets it up no problem. In here, currently what we need to do, I'm just putting in an upload.txt file, basically an empty text file that I can delete. But by having something inside of that folder, it allows me to select it, put it in, tell it that I want it to be inside of another folder by clicking on it, or in the root directory, like this, why not? And then what it's actually going to do is say, okay, I'm going to choose all these files, this is how much it is. Saying copy will zip them up automatically, upload them to the network, and then bring it back down into Field. I'm going to cancel that since they're already up here. So once you've imported them, what you'll notice is that it'll take your Revit file that I uploaded and automatically create an NWD. For those who aren't familiar, an NWD is sort of a bound together Navisworks file. This is actually what allows me to view it from the iPad. Now, once I've got this together, what I need to do is actually tell it what I want it to do with that Revit file. Meaning, if I just want to have it viewed, I'm done. But if I want to get my equipment from this, I'm going to go to Setup. This is where I can manage my project. I'm going to go over here to Equipment. Now in here you can actually see I have two models already put together. So those are the two models that I uploaded. What I might want to do before I start setting this up is to tell it what fields I want custom. Now when you first start using this, you might not know off the bat. And you can always go in and add more, remove things later on. But if I go to Custom Fields, I have two options. I have Other, or I have All Types. Anything in the All Types means that this field or parameter will be available in all types of equipment. If you want certain parameters to only be available in certain kinds of equipment, then I would actually create the other types and add them to that. So if you're going to be adding 20, 30 different parameters and you want to have it really organized so you don't have a bunch of blanks everywhere, I would actually set this up. But in here what you notice is I have one called Unique ID. When I look at my models here, what I can do is say I'd like to create equipment sets. Clicking on this allows me to choose the elements inside of that model based on the category of that content and tell it that I'd like to actually see this as equipment in field. So the ones that I've already got created here are air terminals and mechanical equipment for the MEP file. If I click on the air terminals, what you'll see are arrows on both sides. Now, if I pick the field equipment field, essentially what that means is that when I tell it to sync, it'll take the data in this field and pull it back into the Revit model. So that way, when I'm actually inside of Revit, when I'm making Revit schedules, when I'm clicking on the object in Revit, I'll see the information that has been filled out in the field service. The other direction, if I click over here, means I can add a link. What that means is I'm actually connecting the Revit parameter to a field parameter. So it's a little bit different depending on which direction you go in. If you're connecting it from field to Revit, it makes a new parameter. If you're connecting it from Revit to field, it actually syncs the parameters. So that unique ID I did before, that was me actually connecting the element ID of the object to that. So I have something I can track it back and forth. And then I have the element type name connected to the actual name. Based on the direction and color of the arrow, you can always tell which way things are going. So what I've done is I've uploaded the file. Once I've got that done, what I'm going to actually do is come over here. Tell it what I want to do is actually sync it with BIM 360 Field. So you'll log in, say OK, and this will run for a little bit. Now, the thing to remember here again is that whichever project you are most recently in Field, that's the one that this is going to sync to. You notice that it did not ask me to choose, a project to upload this to. So as it currently stands, because I was in this project most recently, that's the one it's going to try to sync with. So you upload the file, you'll run the synchronization, then you'll have this ability to sync the information back and forth. Once that's done, once you've created the connections that you actually want and care about, then I'm actually going to run the sync one more time. Once all of this is done, you've synced back and forth, you've created the connections that you want, then I can actually go back to my project. And then when I click on my equipment, all the equipment and the connections that I've wanted, move this out of the way here, will be together. So right now I'm looking at some of the air handling units. So I haven't actually set up a whole lot of information. Go. Back down here. And I know there's a little bit of artifacts right now with the GoToMeeting. There you go. But you can see a lot of the other information here. So I have some of my doors that I've created, my curtain wall doors that are coming up. So all this is coming in specifically because I made just a couple of connections. On a full project, what I ended up doing is making more of them. I'd make sure that more data actually came across, so it's a little bit easier to actually track what information is what and what these actual objects are. Again, though, I can always do a search in here and sort things and organize things based on what I really cared about. But this is all the information coming in. I can see my element ID here. I can see all the other information that I've assigned to it. And if I hop back into Revit, say OK, what I can actually do is actually pick these elements. If I come over here and grab that door, you can see that I have an asset ID as one of my parameters. This is not an out-of-the-box parameter. This is something that I actually got synchronized back into Revit from BIM 360 Field. So that way I can actually coordinate information that's coming and going from the field back to the design models or the actual construction management models, and then back out. So from there, I can keep going back and forth, working on this. And then the other thing I can actually do is now that I've created all of this, let me set this up here. There we go. Sorry. Once you have all that set up, you can then hop straight into the iPad. So this allows me to view all this information from mobile. So click on the little head down on the bottom. You pick which project you're concerned about or you want to see. From there, in this case, I click on my models. So these are the two that I loaded up. That loads it up. And now I can navigate this very similar to the BIM 360 Glue mobile app. Click on specific elements, look at their properties, track different information back and forth. And if I see that there's a problem, if I want to put in an RFI on this or create an issue, I can hit on my push pin and create push pins on these things. And say that that's where I need to have an issue. And if I have standard tasks or issues that I want to create, I can just use the issue templates. So that way I don't have everybody writing the same thing 13 different ways. I can make sure, okay, well, what kind of a problem is this? More than likely it's going to fall into these 5 different kinds, and they utilize those to manage things. And then depending on the other information I need to see, I can move around. If I hop into one of my other projects here, what you'll also notice in the bottom right-hand corner of this is that you have a little orange dot. That's telling me that things have changed since the last time that I've synchronized. The cool thing about the mobile app is that this is designed to be used without an internet connection. So that's one of the differences between using it on an Android device where you're just using the web version versus this. Because they realize that you might be in a sub-basement without any internet connection. You can download and synchronize whatever information that you want. That way, when you're working in an area without internet, you're still working with the content. You can still create issues. You can still check your checklists and fill those out and take care of your commissioning with the equipment. Once that's done, you get back outside, tell it to sync again, and it'll sync all that information back up. And if you need to, I can take a look at all the equipment that I've actually got set up. You can see this project is a little bit more fully fleshed out. I can review my checklists. Oops, this one didn't have any, sorry. Take a look at my issues that have been created. So I can put in comments, put in the status of that issue, what the problems with it might be. And if there's any photos out in the field, I can see them all here. And inside the library, if I want to review my floor plans, I can check them out. Again, I can always take a look in here, start modifying things in terms of putting in tasks. from there, there we go. So from there, what I can do is come back, keep modifying things back and forth, and continue working on that workflow. Again, essentially what we've done, you're looking at documents getting out into the field. You're managing your quality and safety programs. By tracking all the equipment, you can help out with the commissioning and then the handover. So if something's going to be used later on for facility management, it'll go all the way through. To run through these quick, most everybody's seen these kind of images before. So you typically have a lot more on-site problems trying to track information, missing things because things are getting misplaced or not tracked. What this is trying to do is similar to the McLeany curve and with the typical sawtooth diagram that you'd end up seeing from any BIM application. It's taking the BIM that everyone's normally used to and bringing that into the construction side. So with that, we're going to hop over to our questions.
Great. Well, thanks, Pete. My first question, as a cloud service, who owns the data? Is the data encrypted in the server? Does Autodesk or any of their partners have any access rights to information put up on the 360 server? Good question.
So as a cloud service, you still own your data. You're not signing away your rights and saying that Autodesk owns all your content. The encryption that it does is similar to what you would find at a bank's website. So all of Autodesk's cloud service solutions are done via the Amazon cloud. So they're actually utilizing that, and I can't remember the specific kind of encryption that they use, but it's relative to like a bank's website.
Right, and just for a reminder for people who join late, if you do have questions, you can just type them into the webinar toolbar just to the right of your screen. All right, Pete, will apps become available to Droid platforms in the future?
I've been told here and there that they are looking at Android or they are working on Android. A lot of it is they're waiting for there to be a need in some respects. So, I mean, I use my iPad for work and I use my Android phone for pretty much everything else. So if you have Android or you have a Windows phone or Windows device and you prefer it on that, let Autodesk know. The more people that tell them that they want something, that gives them the impetus to say, hey, there's actually a need here. And then they'll actually more likely deliver that faster.
All right. Is there a location to log such issues as RFIs, addendums, change orders, et cetera?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can actually log that just as a regular issue. And if the RFI is relative to a specific location, what you can do is on the floor plan, you can actually draw in the typical cloud that there's a change or a note that says I need more information about this. Also, within the issues inside of the just the schedule, or I shouldn't say schedule, within the listing of all the issues, you can actually assign things a location. So I can say, okay, I have an RFI or an addendum inside of this room. So even if you don't have any floor plans or model loaded, you can still track where it is. So the issues can be used for anything. We actually have a couple of places that are looking at using BIM 360 Field just to track equipment like laptops. So it's not necessarily what it was intended for, but it's a tool, and the tool lends itself to that kind of usage.
Great. This software seems to be taking the place of scheduling software. Will this software service integrate with scheduling softwares like ACT?
I'll be honest, I'm not familiar with ACT. However, right now you've got BIM 360 Field and BIM 360 Glue and Navisworks. So Navisworks actually allows you to connect right in with Primavera, which is also a scheduling software, as well as Microsoft Project and the other ones. So Autodesk does know that that is a big part of things. Right now, the scheduling inside of the field, it's not so much as it's tracking a program like Primavera. It doesn't connect to it by default. But what you can do is you can either write custom code that can connect it in the back end, or you can sort of track it. So it's not doing that just yet. It's probably the easiest way to say it.
All right, and then to expand on the location, to log RFIs, et cetera, can you actually group and track those items by number?
Mm-hmm. So let me hop back in here for a second. So essentially I can group them by location here. If I look at my issues, I can say, well, show me all the issues that are in, say, room 102. And with my luck, okay, good, this one actually has some. So this is if I'm using it by location and tracking it that way. The other thing is if I just go back and look at the regular issues, essentially saying view issues, I can sort this by any of the information I have here, whether it's by the description. So if I want to just show me all my, just show me all my RFIs, I'll just type in RFI and do a search, and if there were any, it would just show me those. So depending on how you're looking at things, you can either group them by location, by number, by description, and these parameters that I can look at and search by, these are customizable. I can create more of them if I want to. And similar to creating a brand new parameter in Revit, when you create a new, they refer to it as field here, when you create a new one of those, you can tell it whether it should be text-based or it should be a number or what kind of information do you want to store in there. So that makes it a little bit easier for you to manage the information that people might be putting into it. So if you'd rather track on those by a number, I'll tell it to be a number, and that way they're not putting in like, Bob or Jim or a name or something where really you wanted to follow a specific precedent.
All right. And the files and number of people accessing Revit files may be quite large. This seems like quite a complex management tool. Has it been determined if there are file size limits or best sizes for Revit files?
Not yet, no. It's, when you're uploading it, there is a limit in the file size of the uploader, so you might run into that. However, for the file that I have here, the first time I synchronized it, it did take a good four minutes. And it's not a huge file. So on some of the real projects that I've worked on, whether it's a high-rise or a hospital, and there's a lot of mechanical equipment, just give it some time. Synchronizing it after the fact is faster than the first time. So I haven't run into anything yet where it's like, it's too big, unless the actual file is literally too big. But I believe the limit right now is, let's see here, I think it's 1 gig. And I know they are working on streamlining the file importer and making that a little bit easier as time goes on as well. Let me just grab something in here and upload it. Yeah, the capacity right now is 1 gig at a time.
Peter, then do you think that instead of having one Revit file, it would be better to break the project into several more manageable sizes?
Not necessarily. I would manage the file in Revit in the best way that manages it for the design team. And if you feel that you really need to break it up even more so, if you have Navisworks, even if it's just Navisworks Simulate, Field actually synchronizes with that as well. And it's probably going to be easier for you to have a Revit model that is designed for the design or the modeling team to work with it, more so than it is just to upload to Field. So if you want to break things down and upload it in smaller bite-sized pieces, export that file out to Navisworks, upload it from there.
Once you set up parameters in Field, can you create search sets in Navisworks to select them?
Exactly, yes. When I was connecting the, let's see, hop out of this. When I was connecting things inside of the setup here, because this is a file that was made in Revit, the equipment sets were made by the categories. However, if I have a file from Navisworks, that's exactly what I would be doing. I would be making search sets or selection sets, and that would be how I would create my field equipment sets. So depending on where the program or where the file is coming from, that's what it will actually use.
All right, I think that is it as far as questions go. Have a couple of last slides. All right, so just a reminder, we have a few upcoming classes in Revit architecture if you guys want to get up to speed. Those right now are scheduled for San Francisco, Irvine, or Chicago, but if you do have a specific need, you can email us or look on our website and we'll be happy to get back to you about upcoming classes. Next month's webinar is going to be about Autodesk Simulation CFD, and that's on the 24th of September at 1 Eastern Time. All right, thank you so much for attending. We hope to see you next month.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The organizer has ended the session, and this call will be disconnected.